What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Red Room Podcast. Today, I have a really cool guy. This is the #1 mortgage officer in Santa Cruz County, Ryan, Mr. Buckholdt. How you doing?
Doing well. How about you, Blake?
I'm great, man. I'm great. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah. So let's dive into it and just kind of see where all this began. So your family was in the real estate business kind of like growing up. So that's where you got like the itch to like kind of dive into it.
Yeah, correct. So I was born and raised in Santa Cruz. Dad, general contractor, mother, real estate broker. So they basically bought and sold and moved in 32 different homes in Santa Cruz County my whole life.
Wow. So how was that like moving so much? I mean, obviously you're within the same city, so I'm sure you got to see all your friends and everything still, but were you changing schools too?
No, parents always kept me in the same school. So that was pretty cool. So I lived all the way from Midtown Santa Cruz all the way to Aptos and always kept me in the same schools, drove me wherever I need to go. So that was fortunate.
There you go. And then what high school did you go to?
So I went to Harbor High in Santa Cruz.
Harbor High. Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yep.
my mom was Harbor High.
Nice.
Too. Yeah. Go Pirates. Woo.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I actually probably would have gone there, but then Scotts Valley High literally got built up on the, a couple blocks away from where I was living at the time. So I might as well just, walk, But,
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, Harbor's a great school. So from there, and I remember we met down at Verve in Santa Cruz and we kind of talked about it. Yeah. So you went down to San Diego for college,
Huntington
right?
Beach.
Huntington Beach?
So I went down to Huntington Beach, moved down there. Actually, at 18 years old, my mom was like, hey, just go get your real estate license. Just study for the test, just pass it, just to have it, just in case you ever needed it. Yeah. Just do it. So followed my mom, what she told me to do. I got my real estate license at 18 years old and didn't really use it, but moved down to Huntington Beach and actually started working for a real estate speaker down there at the time. He was this huge mega producer.
A speaker?
Yeah. So his name was Walter. I don't know his last name.
Yeah.
But he was up there with the Tom Ferries and we'd travel around and do speaking events all over the United States. And I started working for him. So
that's cool. So what was that kind of like experience like? I mean, let me back up even further. Did you want to go into the same business as your parents? Or were you like kind of growing up, you're like, yeah, this really interests me? Or did you have that moment where you're like, man, I don't know, maybe I want to go be a musician or something? Or was it always just kind of like in your blood that you wanted to go off and do this?
Yep. 18 years old, no idea what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a professional skateboarder. I wanted to be a professional skimboarder. I wanted to be a professional, something like that, something fun.
Yeah.
And no, wasn't in the cards. So
figured
out, I might as well go into real estate then.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So now you're down in Southern California and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is where you met your wife.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
So what does she do? She in the business too?
So her whole family was in the mortgage business. So that's how she was like, hey, I think you really need to check out that part of the business. I know you do have your real estate license. I know you like numbers. So she basically said, you should really check this out. That was when I moved back to Santa Cruz, however, and started in the business when I was 24. Mm-hmm. So it's been a minute.
So what was that transition like coming from Southern California, where you established yourself, right? Like you kind of like got your feet wet, and then this move back to Santa Cruz. What was that like, having to almost kind of like start over with like networking? And well, you already knew people back here, but you were away for a little bit. So what was that like coming back to the Bay
I was
Area?
down there from about 19 to 23, 24 years old. Was just starting out into the business world. Just a lot of people down there. It was the rat race where Santa Cruz was more home. Like everybody growing up in Santa Cruz, everybody knew who my family was. There was some relation. There's everybody's watching out for you, that sort of thing. It was more of a hometown feel. Mm-hmm. And at that point, when I met my wife, I was like, you know what? I really want that for our kids. I really want to know where they're at, who they're hanging out with, all those things that are important to as parents.
And what did she like Santa Cruz initially coming up, or what were the thoughts? Like, has she been up here? Had you taken her up to like meet your folks and everything before?
Yeah,
like,
so I had done
this is
that,
Santa Cruz. Let's go on the board, the Giant Dipper and everything. Let's check all that out. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Do that whole thing.
Slowly introduced it. It's Santa Cruz is known as the hippie town. So, coming from Southern California up here, it's a cool Santa Cruz vibe, but it's still a hippie town. So that was a little bit of a culture shock for her not to have to put makeup to go to the grocery store and not wear high heels to the grocery store, stuff like that. So,
I always thought, like, when I was living down in LA, I was like, closest thing, like if I'm really having like a I miss home kind of vibe, I'd go to Venice Beach for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
It had that same vibe. So, I was like, oh, okay, I have a little taste of Santa Cruz, and back to the rat race, as you said, So you get back to Santa Cruz and you're with your wife. So when did you guys get married? Did you get married down there and then come up here, or like how? Or
no, so we moved back up here. So at the time, I was going to take over my dad's general contracting business. So I was working for the real estate speaker down there, and then got into real estate down there, and I was a cold caller, and I really just didn't feel my vibe being a cold caller. So decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to move back to Santa Cruz, work for my dad in construction, hopefully take over his construction business. And basically the first day on the job, he handed me a shovel, and I was making $8 an hour, $10 an hour. And it was the hardest work I'd ever done. Wake up at 7, get home at 4, completely dirty, take a shower and go to sleep. And I was like, wow, I don't know if I want to do this the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So wife was like, hey, you should probably look into this business. I think you'd be really good at it. So just started interviewing, kind of get an idea of what it was about. Got into it, and it's been a great thing. It's been fun.
So you're back here, you get into it. Let's talk about kind of those early years. There's a lot of people now, kind of like in my age group, that are just getting into the business. I had a recent gentleman that I bumped into on broker's tour, my age, and he's hopping into your field. So what do you say to the young people coming in? I think like hearing those stories. The reason why I bring it up is when you hear of let's talk about AC/DC. They're like, oh yeah, we did this, and then are we broke? And it's but people don't talk about the years we're really grinding. The grinding years of getting to that point of now you're successful and you're kicking butt and doing Santa Cruz, which is awesome. But what were those years like? Moving. what were those like? Getting established and making a name for yourself. What did you have to do to kind of make your name known? I mean, yes, people knew you, but you're like, okay, but now I'm in this business. So what were those processes, or what did you have to do?
It was tough because so I'm half Asian, half white. Dad's German, mother's Chinese. And so I have the youth looking on my side. Yeah. So at 24, 25 years old, I looked like I was 19. So that was a hard barrier for people to get past how young I was. Yeah. The people who had gray hair at the time looked like they had more experience and that were smarter than me. Mm-hmm. But that really wasn't true. So I had to go and I had to dress, wearing a suit and tie every single day to work. In Santa Cruz, that's almost looked at, frowned upon. Yeah. To wear.
I've had conversations. Yeah. Same. I've had conversations. Yeah.
So I had to wear every day, suit and tie, just went to work, did that for 10, 15 years straight until I got that comfort level of people understanding that I was serious about my business and I'm there to stay. It's not a fly by night. And I knew my stuff. So basically it was a grind for the first 10, 15 years. Yeah. All my friends at the point surfing, seeing me in my suit and tie laughing at me, but
hey, you gotta do it, man. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you talked about, and what you sent me to, when you had kids, keeping them kind of involved with your finances and really at a young age, this is how money works. This is how the world works. Why would you why'd you take that approach? I understand it, but there's people oh no, let them kids or whatever. But I like that because I think that's what I would want to do with my kids too. Yeah. It's hey, go out and play, but at the same time, figure this out because this is how the world works, Yeah. So exactly. That's cool that you did that. Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah. So, people's finances, that's a lot of voodoo for a lot of people. People don't like to discuss that. However, in my business, that's what I need to know. I need to know how much money you make. I need to know how much you have in debt. I need to know how much you have in savings to put down on a property. So all of those things are very important that they never taught us about in school. Yeah, I had some family class. I forget what it was, but it was about buying eggs and buying groceries and stuff like that and having a budget. But it wasn't as in depth as it is, like what credit cards even are. So, just really grounding to my kids to have them understand how much things cost and how much you have to spend and how much money you have to make. And, they say money doesn't buy you happiness, but it's a huge driver of what you can and can't do.
Yes. Yeah. It's 2 points off that. A big Eminem fan. He said something. He's like, he says money doesn't buy you happiness, but I'd rather be crying in my sport car than something along the lines of that. But you brought up that the first topic of, and I find it fascinating that schools don't do this. Why don't they teach you these things when you're that young? It was the funniest thing. Again, we were just talking about TikTok before, turned on the cameras here. And I was watching one where, this comedian was like, oh yeah, he was sitting there pretending to be two people in the conversation. He's like, I wonder how mortgages work and buying a house. I'm like, yeah, and a credit card. And then it cuts to, it's like, oh yeah, well the plesiosaur is, was around 15 billion years ago. And, he's like, you better know that because that's going to help you keep a job. And it was that point of no disrespect to any of the archaeologists or anything like that, but it's to the point of they don't teach you those things, and all these people come into this world. They're like, okay, wait, what is a mortgage?
Yeah.
Do you run into any of new home buyers and you're kind of having to explain all of that to them, or do they kind of have a grasp on?
Today's society, I think they do have a little bit of a grasp on it because there's so much information out there. It's not like when I was younger. Information was hard to come by when I was younger.
Yeah. Now we got ChatGPT.
Yeah, exactly.
Google.
Exactly. Yeah. And everybody's experts.
Yeah.
That's what makes it kind of hard too.
Yeah.
WebMD, everybody have self-diagnosing themselves.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's definitely important. I don't know why they don't teach it in class. This is one of the most fundamentals about growing up and taking care of your own responsibilities. When I got my first credit card at 19, I thought I won the lottery for $2,000. That was the limit I got. And I was like, wow, I'm going to buy $2,000 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
Bought a mountain bike, and that was probably, I paid that off in probably 15 years it took to pay that $2,000 credit card off. So one of the dumbest things I ever did, but a learning experience for myself too.
Yep.
But they didn't teach you anything about that in high school or growing up, basically.
Yeah. I think, if there was something that needed to be done across the U.S., I think that would be really important. People I just really do. I think that's an issue that everybody can agree on. It's
exactly.
hey, let's teach people about this stuff.
Yeah.
So another thing too. So let's talk about properties and how to get into kind of the real estate world. And so you in your notes that you gave me, you said that you had about 5 or so different properties, and that was with your family, or was that on your own? And then how do you suggest people getting into that and then keeping their money? Because there's different ways to save money so the government can't keep dipping their little hands in your pocket. So let's start at the top of that and kind of work your way down and give us some little breadcrumbs here of really cool information and knowledge.
Yeah. So wife and I bought our first house at 24 years ago, right when my daughter was born. So at the time, we were paying $800 in rent. My first payment, $1,648.52. I exactly still remember my first mortgage payment. I don't remember all the other ones on those houses, but that first one, I'm going into a situation where it's double whatever the rent I was paying at $800 to $1,648.
Yeah.
So that was scary as heck. Yeah. But back at the time, you could get in with no money down. So basically, we didn't put any money down and basically bought a home for, I believe it was $250,000 back then.
Wow.
In Santa Cruz. And then basically, once property values went up a little bit, was able to sell it a couple years later at $450,000. So almost doubled our money in order to buy the next house. Wish we wouldn't have sold it now, hindsight.
Yeah.
But we had to buy the next one. And ever since then, we basically, any savings that I have, so I put 20% of my paycheck away to savings into the S&P 500. That's where I invest. It's just easy, no brainer. I don't need to think about it. It performed well. I put my assets there, and then I put money to 401k. So I keep my homes separate from my liquid cash. My liquid cash grows itself. The home's value grows itself. Mm-hmm. Whenever interest rates drop, then that's the time to refinance, pull cash out, keep my payment the same in order to use for the next property. So we basically just kept doing domino effect where we just buy the next one, buy the next one, buy the next one. And so now we're up to 5 properties, our primary residence, 3 rentals, and then a second home.
So what was that moment where you and your wife talked and were like, hey, let's keep this property and turn it into a rental? And when, after how many homes of purchasing was that, like, that conversation? You get where I'm going?
Yeah, exactly. You know, it was whenever we financially felt that we could do it. Exactly. You know, basically the first one we had to sell. The second one that we had, when we bought the third one, we were able to keep the second one at that point.
Gotcha.
And then bought another one, and then we did sell that one again to buy the next bigger home. So there was just different points in our life where we could keep some and retain some, and then sell some off when we needed to. We just had to feel out what the economy was going through, what our incomes looked like, all of that. So, you know.
And then when you were making that hop too, did you have it so the renters would pay off the mortgage of the house that you were leaving to go and purchase another one, and you kept that as the rental?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because that was another point that you brought up too, is like you want to put not as small amounts down so you can, work that out with the bank.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Put down as little as possible and let the bank basically be my lender in order to grow based off of appreciation on our homes. So that's what we've done, and that's what my parents have done, and it's worked out well so far.
Fun topic too. So John Spagnola was just on a little bit ago, and I didn't know you guys knew each other, and we talked about the whole Hideout vodka thing and everything.
Yeah.
So how'd you meet John?
So I actually met John probably 10, 15 years ago when we were working on a project together on a real estate website.
Yeah. Okay. He mentioned, he was mentioning.
So that's how I met him. Didn't really work out, but he was like, hey, I really want to work with you. I really want to do something with you. Yeah. And I was like, cool, go find a company where it's fun. I'm like, mortgages are stressful. It's always down to the wire. I'm trying to make things happen. I want a fun company. Yeah. So he went out. He's like, why don't we start an alcohol company? I was like, okay, I don't drink, but sure. Let's see how it works out. Yeah. So he put together some formulas. It's all based off of people telling us, our customers telling us what they like and what they don't like. Mm-hmm. And his brands have won awards on it. So basically him and I are in a partnership together on the alcohol business. It's fun. Wherever we're at, people are having a great time. Yeah. It's just a company where I wanted a GoPro company where every place they're at, they're having fun. Yeah. So that was my criteria for the next company was, I just want to have fun.
Yeah. No, he's such a cool guy. He actually came down to my sister's engagement party in Malibu, and he brought a handful of the bottles and kind of like sponsored the party. And Blair had 100-something people, 120 people there.
Yep.
And everybody loved the alcohol. Everybody loved it. Like, this is the best vodka I've ever had. Like, oh my gosh, yada, yada, yada. And then John, because he's just such a cool, fun guy, befriended Blair and Jaron. That's Jaron's Blair's fiance.
Okay.
And so to the point where now they invited him to come to the wedding out in Europe this summer. So we're all headed out there and whatnot. But yeah, John's a really cool dude. So yeah, I can see you guys are cool. It's that partnership, the vibe. Yeah, that whole facility there is crazy. That's really, really cool.
He's done a great job.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm the silent partner. He comes to me asking me, ideas and things we should do and strategy and all of that. And he's just a super hard worker and gets it done.
Yeah.
He's a great partner to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about this. So your little girl just got married.
Yep.
Congrats on that, man.
Thank you.
What was that experience like? You know, it's like you have your kid and then you watch her grow up and then you're thinking of that moment, like, who's she going to marry? You know?
Yeah.
And then you meet the guy and then like, did you know right away? Did you know right away? Like that was him, you know?
So she brought him home at 2 weeks before her 16th birthday. So they've been dating for a long time.
Yeah.
When she brought her home, you know, after we met him and everything, my wife and I, we closed our bedroom door and I was like, you know what? That's a bummer she just met him because he is perfect for her. This sucks that it's her first boyfriend ever, that this is probably not going to work out. So that's just a bummer. She ends up marrying him.
That's awesome.
You know, he is the best guy that we could have for the family.
Yeah. It's such a small world. So Chase, my dad was his 5th grade teacher at Baymont.
That's funny.
No idea. What's up, dude? It was just like, it was like such a small world because so I met Karina at Power Trip, that concert.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And Chase was cousins with the
Bill and Jennifer.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Yes. And so like we're all like hanging out, like watching, and then it was funny because like I get the phone call from you, and it was like, oh, you're like, hey, it's Ryan. Like, yeah, I was at this, you're like at this concert with my daughter. I'm like, who? I'm trying to think. It was like 3 or 4 months like after. I'm like trying to think like what concert. I'm like, oh, and then like I put the names together, and I'm like, oh, like there you go. And so yeah, that was cool. Cool of her, just kind of like introducing, us and everything like that.
Social butterfly.
Yeah,
she is.
Yeah.
She's always networking.
That's it. That's it. So what do you think of Santa Cruz, like real estate wise, like with all the changes and everything like that? Like let's dive into it. ADUs. What are your thoughts on those? And then like prefab homes too, because like right now in the office, like we were actually talking about it at our meeting last week. Like Amazon has like homes that you can purchase for like $10,000. You just come, they just drop it off and they set it up and you're like, good. So I'm like, why don't I just buy like an empty plot of land and then just go and drop one of these things? What are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah. So Santa Cruz in general. So we're one of the last beach communities that is either cheaper or the same price as the other side of the hill or the valley. Okay. So I think there's still a lot of value in Santa Cruz because it's a beach community. Mm-hmm. So I think we're still going to see prices go up there. Yeah. Because we're a vacation area and people love the beach. People love the area. They're not making any more land. Basically, Santa Cruz, I think last statistic I read was 92% built out. So there's only 8% left to build actual properties on. So ADUs right now is just a second source of income of building an ADU on your property in order to increase the value or to be able to have it cash flow. So my wife and I have built 3 ADUs in the last couple of years on different properties that we own. So our primary residence, we put an ADU in there, all legal, all permitted.
Yeah.
We did it in the confinement of what the original space is already. So the walls of the house. Mm-hmm. We did a ADU on top of a 3-car garage on one of our investment properties. So built a custom ADU on top of that. And then our last one, we did like you had said, buy it on Amazon, but it was actually a company called Samara, who's out of Redwood City, who builds it, brings it in on a truck, and then craned it over one of our houses, put a foundation under it, and then bolted it to the foundation. So instant ADU. The whole process took about 6 months, and they had a financing department. I'm in finance that totally blew everybody else away that I saw. Basically, they required 10% down. They were exactly on budget from what they told me how much the price was to the end of it. They handled every single thing. I'd never had to talk to the city. I never had to talk to a plumber. I never had to talk to an electrician. It was they handled
everything,
every single thing from getting the permits to down to every possible thing. So
was that associated in like a fee? Like, hey, we're going to do all this work for like a little, like, how did that all work?
It was, here's the price. This is what you'll pay. We take care of everything.
Interesting.
And I put 10% down. So 10% down, they gave me a 30-year fixed behind my first mortgage at like 7.25% interest rate. That was any other company, if I had to build it, I would have had to have the cash
Yeah.
or refinance my first in order to pull the cash out. So this company was enticing because they would finance it for me behind the first mortgage. So it definitely made sense. So that took total 8 months on that one because the city dragged their feet on a couple things. But we just got the final last Friday, and it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 700 square foot ADU that they craned in. It was pretty cool.
It's just, do you think that's the future with like in being in areas like this? Do you think that's it? It's interesting to think about, like, yes, it's cool. Yes, I think it's great because then it helps people get into these areas that they want to be in. But it's like you also run into the issue now where like I'm in Scotts Valley right now. I remember when Scotts Valley Drive used to be like 1 or 2 cars going from end to end. And now it's like there's traffic on Scotts Valley Drive. And all of these lots used to be, RV parking like spots. You know what I mean? Like that's what Scotts Valley like was. And so then the thought is too, because we were talking about this a while back in the office as well when this subject first came up. It's just fascinating. That's why I'm asking like your opinion about it. It's now that the ADUs are getting put in. Some of the families that are moving in there aren't able to get their kids into the school district because it's like overpopulated.
Yep.
So it's like, what are your thoughts on that? And now there's like for example, Scoutus Boulevard over here that used to be like coach and buggy. And so when you see the homes that are like right there, it's not a garage, it's a carriage, storage. Like that's where it was. And so it's like, this street, like, these homes aren't able to handle your like giant Hummer coming in there, So like, where do you see it kind of going? Are we just going to literally be like packed in, like super tight like that and then expanding out? Like, is that where you think it's going to?
I think that's where it's going to go. Gavin Newsom on this whole SB9. So SB9 is basically.
Thank you for bringing.
Yeah. Where they can stick an ADU on there and then they can actually split the property and then call the ADU a condominium if it's owner occupied. I've been told the first one happened in San Jose about 8 months ago. I just worked on one in Santa Cruz where they bought the lot with 2 homes and they were able to split it based off SB9. So 2 best friends went in, bought this one lot with 2 homes on it, and then they split it. And so each has their own home now. So basically allowing 2 different parcels now for 2 separate homes. I think that's going to be what is the wave of the future is properties that are going to be split and making smaller properties, but now you can make more homes. That's what we need. We just need more housing.
Yeah.
I'm for growth. I'm not trying to stun it up. Oh, this is my, I want limited people here. I want, small environment. I can't say that. It's not the world's growing. There's more people. It's more just, people. We all need to be cordial and live together and, make it work out. So,
yeah. It's interesting too. So my family has 2 lots up in Tahoe. We're in Myers, Christmas Valley. So it's like, I think it's a 55 freeway that's like right there. It hugs the mountains as you like come down to the South Shore. Yeah. And we're like right down there. But I was looking into this whole entire thing because I'm like, okay, if it's a multifamily residential like zoning, what's stopping me from just taking like 4 of these prefab homes and slapping them together and calling it a 4-plex? And had like one of our attorneys here and I asked him about it. He's like, that's a really interesting idea. Like I've never heard of that before. And I'm like, he's like, I got to look into that. And I'm like, maybe there's something there. I mean, it just kind of makes sense to me. If you could buy a lot for like $80,000 and then go get an Amazon house. Yeah. You just got to drop it on there. It's like, there you go. You got a huge yard and there's your house. And it's definitely interesting.
Somebody did it on 7th Avenue. They bought a lot and they put 7 of them on there. I think it was 7. 7 2-bedrooms on there. Yeah.
Whoa. That's crazy.
Yeah. And they're all each have their, fences. They're all private. It looks like it's a cool community.
That is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting seeing like, Santa Cruz grow. Like I know downtown Scotts Valley is now like, I know they've been working on that for like a minute.
Yeah.
But Randy Johnson, who's the mayor, he had this whole thing, RFP, the original RFP was written back in like 2003 or whatever. And it's always like kept falling apart, but now they're starting to work on it. And it's like, what's that going to be like? And it's funny because I was talking to him, I'm like, Randy, you got to make it happen. Because literally the hangout spot for everyone that went to Scotts Valley High was Taco Bell down the street.
Yeah.
That was it. It's like, it'd be great for, all of the young kids to have like a spot for people to like go and hang out. What I love about that area too is they have the hangar.
Yep.
And so it's like, why not keep that whole airport theme going? I think it'd be kind of fun too.
Yeah. Keep the history there.
Like Howard Hughes with the Spruce Goose. Mm-hmm. So in LA, right below Loyola Marymount University, which is my alma mater, all that land is airport. And it's now called Silicon Beach. And they've built like all the tech companies there. But where the Spruce Goose was built, and you can see it from standing on top of the bluff at LMU, like looking over the city. It's like one of the most gorgeous views of LA. But there's a giant hangar, and Google owns all that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But they call that whole entire area the runway. And I'm just cool. Like, that's what we got to do up here. You already have the hangar. I was like thinking like, how fun would it be if you had like Terminal 1 and Terminal 2, and those are like, commercial at the bottom and, townhomes or condos up top. And then you could have like baggage claim, it's just like where all the food is, and then like you could have like the tower, which is like, like 5-star restaurant, take an elevator up and it's like overlooking like, downtown Scotts Valley or something like that. I think it'd be kind of cool. Just
definitely.
Like a little homage, and you're like walking down like the main drag and it has like LED lights. That's what they have down there in LA. They have like little LED lights that are like pulsing like as you're walking. So it looks like you're like on the tarmac. It's pretty cool.
I like your vision.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know. A little creative once in a while, But what are like from your perspective, what were like the big changes for you from like when you were 18 getting in the business till now seeing Santa Cruz? What were like the big major like real estate like development changes that you saw? You're like, whoa, and like now that's a thing that everybody knows, like what were those like moments? Like I remember in Scotts Valley, like when they brought the Hilton in there, everyone's like, oh, we're getting a Hilton, like, okay. And now the Hilton's there. And then, oh, now we have a Four Seasons, what were like some of those moments like, growing up for you where you're like, oh, wow,
Costco.
Yes.
The first Costco.
Free
that was
samples.
Like, exactly. That was like groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And then the second was Target. Once we got to Target, it was like, okay, now we're on the map.
Now we're on the map.
Target's coming in, we're on the map.
We did it.
Yeah. Now Scotts Valley has a Target.
Yeah, I know. I'll still go to the Santa Cruz one though. The Scotts Valley one still, it has some things, but it's not like Target, I feel like is kind of like the Santa Cruz one.
Yeah.
It still reminds me of Kmart, RIP Kmart.
Yeah.
That was it's OG, but even Costco talking about that too. They're building like, there was a whole article. Do you see this? They're building like apartments on top of the Costco's now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I don't know if they're going to do it for this one in Santa Cruz, but there's an article where they're like talking about doing it now. And they're like, how great is that? You live there, and then you come down, you go grocery shopping, take an elevator back up to your place, and it's like, you don't have to leave. You know what I mean? You put a little CVS pharmacy in there too, like you're set. Don't have to go anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, this has been fun.
Yeah, definitely.
It's been really, really fun. Thank you for coming on and like just being like an insight and such a community leader and everything. And it's really cool to hear like people's stories like yourself have like made again their mark in the business and are, now you're helping your daughter get in the game. I'm excited to talk with her too. And like see from her perspective, growing up, and being like, all right, Dad, like now what, so I think that's going to be a great conversation too, but it's awesome. Like sitting here and talking with you and just like, again, being a community leader and, and helping people out and getting them, at the end of the day, putting that smile on their face and getting them in their home. It's just really commendable. So
thank you.
Thanks for coming on here. Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Definitely.
And then, Ryan, if people want to contact you, put your information below.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
All right.
Definitely.
Yeah. This is the guy to do it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the guy to do it. Contact information will be below. Thank you again for tuning in, and see you next episode.
Thanks, Blake.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan.
Cool.
Cool.